Now they're gonna follow that.
I don't know where to go. On the back.
If everybody's ready, we'll get started. Call this September 6, 2022 meeting of the Henderson City County Planning Commission to order. Welcome to everybody and thank you for coming. Can you call the roll?
David Dixon.
Here.
Kevin Richards.
Here.
Bobby Jarrett. Here. Mac Arnold.
Here.
XR Royster.
Here.
Dickie Johnson.
Here.
Gary Gibson.
Here.
Doug Bell. Stacy Denton. Here. Kevin Herron.
Here.
Gray Hodge.
Here.
Frank Boyette.
Here. Very good, thank you. We have a quorum.
We do.
We've got some public hearing items this evening, so I need a motion to go into public hearing.
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, Commissioner Bell has joined us. First
Good
item
evening.
under public hearing, the approval of minutes from the August 2nd and 3rd Planning Commission meetings. Motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes are approved. Next item is a rezoning, 1130, with a development plan. Now, Mr. Bishop, you gonna help us with that?
Yes, sir. Submitted by Mulzer Crushed Stone Incorporated, Ken Mulzer, for the property located in the city of Henderson at 645 and 651 West Main Street, being parcel ID numbers 1-3-4-6 through 8, containing approximately 28,600 square feet. The applicant's requesting a zoning change map amendment from the Henderson Innovative Planning District to the Light Industrial District with a development plan to consolidate the lots for a proposed 8,000 square foot building. As I said, the applicant is proposing an 8,000 square foot building that will be used to store landscaping and mowing equipment. The property is currently owned by Mulzer Crushed Stone, and it is proposed to be purchased by Mr. Scott McCord, who's in the audience with us. If the property is rezoned, it will be subject to a consolidation plat and then a small technical site plan that will be brought back to the Plan Commission staff. And in conjunction with the technical advisors, we will approve the plat and then, the site plan, and then the rezoning will be complete. Staff has prepared proposed motion and findings of fact. If you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer.
Commission have any questions for staff? What is the Henderson HIP district? What is that?
It was a newly created.
What's it for?
The HIP zone was created, I believe, roughly in 2016-17 range. It was basically a zone that was created to be a little more innovative, as the name implies, to create more flexibility in zoning, especially in that part of town. We wanted to kind of be a little more creative with the zoning there. Honestly, it's not taken off as we had expected, and a property like this may have not been the best choice for the HIP district, especially considering the historic use of Mulzer Crushed Stone and the adjacent property.
Any other questions for staff? Mr. Bishop, could you share this proposed motion, please?
Yes, sir. Rezoning 1130 with a graphic development plan submitted by Mulzer Crushed Stone Incorporated, Ken Mulzer, for the property located in the city of Henderson at 645, 649, and 651 West Main Street, being parcel ID numbers 1-3-4-6 through 8, containing approximately 28,600 square feet. The applicants are requesting a zoning change map amendment from the Henderson Innovative Planning District to Light Industrial District with a graphic development plan to consolidate lots for a proposed 8,000 square feet building. I move that the Plan Commission recommend that the Henderson Board of Commissioners, the city, approve rezoning application 1130, changing the zoning classification from Henderson Innovative Planning District to City Light Industrial with a graphic development plan. It is incorporated herein by reference for the subject property. I leave the motion open for other members of the Planning Commission to add findings of fact in support of this motion because proposed rezoning is not in agreement with the future land use map of the comprehensive plan. The existing HIP zoning classification is inappropriate, and the proposed M1 zoning classification is appropriate because property has historically been used in an industrial nature. Surrounding parcels are zoned for similar uses. The property was inaccurately lumped into a larger rezoning when the HIP district was created. Developing the property in this nature creates positive infill and is currently vacated or vacant area, 3 parcels will be consolidated for the purpose of building a landscape equipment storage facility.
Very good. Would you like these findings of fact, can we enter those into the record as your findings of fact?
I would, sir.
Extra testimony.
Yes. Thanks.
Yes, sir.
Anybody here who would like to speak, in favor of this project? Thank you, sir. I need your name,
Chris Hopgood,
address.
318 Second Street, Henderson.
You promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Very good. Thank you.
I'm here for the applicant, and the applicant's agreed to sell the property to Mr. McCord, provided that the rezoning goes through. This is one of those properties that's sort of tucked into a zone that really doesn't fit what it's always been used for. You've got Chase Pump and Supply, and then Scott McCord's business, which used to be the A1 Septic, county water. It's got some storage behind. And if you didn't have this before, you may not even know what West Main Street was, but it's a little street that runs in behind the county water building. This would, approving this zoning would allow Mr. McCord to build a building right adjacent to his current property and allow him to end his business and very well within the nature of the rezoning area. The property will then have a nice new building that'll generate more revenue for the city and the county.
As you said, I didn't realize we had 2 main streets in Henderson.
It is,
I had to look it up.
I think it goes way, way back. It's looking at the old, city plat. I think it goes pretty far back.
Any questions, Mr. Hopgood? Thank you, sir. Anyone here that'd like to speak against this proposal? Commission have any further comments, questions for anyone involved? The motion that was presented, are there subject twos that need to be added onto that?
We would request that it be subject to plat consolidation. Consolidation plat, excuse me.
No other comments or questions? I'll entertain a motion in regard to rezoning 1130 with a development plan.
Chairman, I move that the planning commission recommend Board of Commissioners approve rezoning number 1130, changing the zoning classification of Henderson Innovative Planning District to City Light Industrial with the and also into the record the finding of facts read into testimony. Consolidation.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Kevin Richard,
Yes.
Bobby Jarrett,
Yes.
Mac Arnold,
Yes.
XR Royster,
Yes.
Dickie Johnson.
Yes.
Gary Gibson,
Yes.
Doug Bell,
Yes.
Stacy Denton. Yes. Kevin Herron,
Yes.
Gray Hodge,
Yes.
Frank Boyette.
Yes.
Very good. The motion passes. Next item is a review of the zoning ordinance and changes to certain sections. A further request of the Henderson City Commission.
Good evening. Steve and I are gonna do a little duet tonight, so
Okay.
for your entertainment.
So who wants to go first?
Well, I'll start.
Name,
Dawn Kelsey,
address,
222 First Street.
and do you promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Good. And you, sir?
Steve Davis,
And your address?
1990 Barrett Court, Suite B.
And you promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
Good. Thank you, y'all.
The city commission, listened to a recommendation made by staff, about a month and a half ago, and so we're gonna bring the presentation to you all tonight. And the goal, so it's for a residential subdivided manufactured home district. And the goal is, in 1969, the city annexed property off of Old Horton Road, which included a subdivision which was platted and designed for manufactured homes. And in fact, it was fully developed in 1969. When it came into the city, it was zoned R2. And the property was fully developed, so the limitations of R2 really didn't matter. But it was most likely an inappropriate zoning classification. I was 1 year old, so I couldn't come to tell you all that, but I've come today to talk to you about it. So particularly, it's Green Acres that we're coming to talk to you about, but this zoning district will be able to be used for other zoning districts. And this is the plat for Green Acres. Developed mobile home district where each property owner owns their property. So unlike the manufactured home, unlike the current manufactured home district, which anticipates one plat with different lots on it, in Green Acres, you have many different lots that are individually owned. So, really no one thought about this for quite some time. R2, manufactured homes aren't allowed in R2 districts. So, if a home fell in disrepair and was gone for over a year, it would lose its non-conforming, and you could. The minimum lot width was 60. Most of these lots were 60, but some of them are not. And then front yard and backyard setbacks are 20. Most of the front yards meet those 20, but as it was platted, some of them were platted with 15 feet backyard setback. So there's no way for these properties to come into compliance in our current zoning. It wasn't a problem until the last few years. The last few years, the neighborhood has really, just pure age, has really started to go down. And in fact, we've had to write up many code violations, and the city has taken down trailers out there because of the state. And some of those trailers that we took down, they've lost their non-conforming use. They can't, currently under R2, they can't replace them with the trailer. Many of the lots have now been purchased by some new developers who are looking to add money into the neighborhood. Honestly, we are hurting for low-income or medium-income housing. And if we could have more where we currently use them, and a wonderful neighborhood in which to be able to do that. But currently, with the limitations we have, there's no way to do that. So, what we come to talk to you about is a new residential subdivided manufactured home district. And in it, Class A and B manufactured homes to be placed, as well as single family. And you could have accessory uses, all yard barns that are car.
Now, this, Class A and Class, these
Yes.
are, Class A are new ones?
Yes,
Class B are ones that have been built since what, 1976?
that's, yes.
Well, Class A meet our standardizations. This class 19. Also have a masonry skirt, have roof that meets similar to what you would see in a residential neighborhood. That really, by all standards, looking at it, it'd be hard to tell if it was the front of the road. A lot of the manufactured houses. It's that's Class A. our Class B is a new manufactured house, HUD certified home. Is more of like doesn't meet our standards for Class A, would still be considered a.
Class C and D. What's the difference?
Yeah,
What's
well,
that
we
difference?
have, with manufactured homes, there are several standardizations. You can get what's called a B seal, which is, it's okay for this area, it's not a new home necessarily, but it is livable, and it does meet the zoning, regulations as far as like. Honestly, don't know the.
It's not
Currently,
acceptable. under
it's not
certain
acceptable.
standards.
Yeah, Class C and
It's
D.
not livable.
Yeah, Class C and D are not allowable in any of our districts. So in our other manufactured home districts, we allow.
In the neighborhood you use as an example here, there are Class C and D homes.
Verify that, because I'm typically to go inside the house location. A lot of times there would be what's called a data tag or plate underneath the kitchen. So I cannot, obviously, there's absolutely.
There are some lots that have been affected by this already.
Yes, sir. Those houses have been condemned and removed.
Right, so recognize that right now it's an R2 zone. So the only way you'd be able to put a manufactured home back is if you get done within it becomes back, so that it becomes non-conforming use. And so, right now, those are non-conforming use. Actually, all of those mobile
Yeah.
homes out there right now are non-conforming use. If you get it back in the same footprint within, not, okay, so.
That's the one exception. Let me say that. An
Mhm.
R2, you're not allowed to have a mobile home. You couldn't get a conditional use.
You've got developers out here who want to bring in manufactured homes. They can't,
It can't go in an R2.
okay.
Each of these lots would be potentially considered for rezoning separately.
It would be, but it would be, yes. But there's not really a good zone that they could go in, because you would have to really, an R3 or an Ottoman
Well,
residential?
if this new zone was
Oh, it's
established,
this new zone, yes.
then each of those, would be an individual basis, each of those lots.
What we would do is we would ask for a map amendment. If you all approve this, then what we will ask for a map amendment. And so the entire subdivision. When we get Ottoman residents. And it would benefit everyone. Right now, they're all.
Are there,
Only applies to this subdivision, and I said earlier that the the mobile units that are there also on the property underneath.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
Only place in all of Henderson like this. You can have a mobile home on your property. Every other one is a mobile home park or RD, where you can have a neighborhood that was specifically individual ownership of mobile.
And when it was created and developed, it was in the county. So that's how that all worked. And then it came into the city in 1969. We don't know. Marie, city clerk, pulled all the documents. I'm not quite sure of why it came, what the impetus was to annex it in, but it was annexed in. She was able to hold.
You can't use the grandfather's cause, and they had that 69 in case they want
redo their trailer, they can't even redo their trailer?
If they do it within 1 year.
That's the
Within
clause.
1 year.
And it has to be in the current footprint.
That's, yeah,
No, the-
exact same footprint.
In other words, they couldn't put a 70-foot wide where a 50-foot wide.
Not currently, no. And we'll get to what the
Yeah.
setbacks are, but right now, they are handcuffed by what is
Really nothing
happening.
legal.
Okay, this is the only area of town where each lot is individually owned.
Yes.
But are there other areas where this would be a good zone?
So, one of the things that we talked about, sorry, Steve, one of the things that we talked about is that there are some older mobile home parks currently that we could overlay this district on them. And so they could go from their current state to being where they could come to you all to get rezoned into this, and then they could sell those lots off and recreate a new neighborhood. So, the other thing is, as we annex in more property, and as housing prices continue to rise, this may be a very good alternative for affordable housing in our. But right now, what happened, the reason we looked at it is new developers came in, well, one, it was a code. Steve and Dobby are out there all the time doing codes problems. And then when new developers wanted to do something, Steve was like.
You can't put them on. It's
So.
just not allowed by ordinance.
Ready for me to go on? All right, so the current state of the neighborhood, you can see, has some issues. We have been tearing down houses, or mobile homes down there. So, what we would do is we would put a conditional use, home occupation, churches, or family childcare. As you all know, the law changed this past year, and so any residents, you have to be able to do childcare. The building site, we would ask that 6,000 square be the minimum for the building. But otherwise set forth under plat approved prior to the adoption of this. So that would grandfather your people if they get stuck. Most of these people are going to get 6,000. But two of those lots that are in corners. Two of those lots, and Steve and Teresa on GIS, and there's a few lots that just came in by the way that it was. So that's why we put that exception, but no one else would ever be able to do that. But that just helps. And then, but for any other permitted use, other manufactured home dwelling or 15,000, if you had a church, if you had that would be allowable. Setback yards or setback requirements are the same that we currently have in R2, except we put the exception otherwise set forth on prior to the adoption of the zoning ordinance. So those few lots that don't have that 20 or that 8 foot backyard, mainly backyard issues, will still be able to put in an. And then the general requirements are what we require of all mobile homes with the skirt, the underpinning, and you have to have 2 off-street parking. So, did I miss anything on that? All right. So it was the recommendation of the commission that we bring this to you all, so that we can have more flexibility and allow more affordable homes.
I'm taking from that in the overview, less restrictive members of the public, not more.
Right now,
Is that correct?
Yes.
Everybody agree on that? I'm
This
not
is the
sure.
only way we can think of to allow people to put manufactured homes, which is what this is. Now, R2 is very restricted.
But I'm also thinking about future locations, like Commissioner Boyd. Be applicable and encourage this type of,
Are there any the other mobile home parks in the city limits now?
Yes.
How are they handled?
they are a mobile home park, so they are one lot, parcel, and they have their own little section in it, but they're not separate. That's the difference.
as far as codes enforcement in those that are
When these were originally put in, back in, the sixties, that was in the county. Was there septic systems with, what was their?
You know, the electric was wired like you would see. So, a lot of hurdles in this neighborhood, a lot of head scratching going on there.
No zoning in the county.
Oh, well, there you go. There was no zoning in the county, so it was allowable in this happened prior to 1969, because
Yeah.
it came into the city. That's your answer back. I don't know about the septic.
I just was curious, I mean, I know that
They're on
some places
sewer
have,
now.
like an individual sewage system for that, subdivision or whatever, and I know there's a couple out in the county that way
Yeah.
they had.
There was
their own.
one like Finley Edition, that
Yeah.
the city just brought in and put in.
I just got wondered, if, it just hit me when we talked about all this, that, were they? I told her.
Any other questions from the commission? Any other questions for staff in this regard? Thank you very much.
How
I'm
can
sorry.
we make it more compatible where they can go ahead, the people that live there can go ahead and stay there without any complications?
This.
We're
This
rezoning
will
it for
allow
a
it.
reason.
That's, give people a home, some of us know.
Yeah, we want them to keep that there.
We do. And so this will allow it. Now, what we'll have to do is, if you all approve it, it'll come to city commission. We'll put it in as an ordinance, they'll have things, and then we'll have to go back and do a map amendment. So you all will see Green Acres again. Now allow those people to place, or they can currently live in their mobile homes, but they can't live or on the same footprint within 1 year.
There's a real challenge right now when it comes to manufactured houses, actually getting one. Getting one the same size as you.
In fact, them time, everything's about 50 foot long, 10 foot wide. Now they got 14 by 75,
Yeah.
no.
Really a challenge. What do you think? I'll wrap my arms around the situation.
Any other questions, comments?
I think this is innovative. I think this is good work.
I have another one, but I'm assuming you want to vote.
No, we're gonna vote on this in
Okay.
separate. Thank you very much.
So to clarify, the required action is to approve those new zoning classifications, recommend approval.
We recommend, we hold a hearing, public hearing, and recommend the commission, recommend this. The planning commission and adopts.
Very good. Just to make sure we get this on the record, anyone here to speak in opposition to this change or addition to the regulations? None. No other comments or questions? I'll entertain a motion in this regard.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to recommend to the city commission to approve new zoning classification RSMH residential subdivided manufactured home as presented by this presentation.
Mr. Chairman,
Of course.
Would you consider adding to your motion that part of your motion is for record? Not findings of fact, but we're supposed to.
Yes, and so with, to amend my motion, based on the fact that the current zoning of R2 not seem to be appropriate for, and actually inhibits the development.
I'll read second that.
Right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Secretary, please call the roll.
Frank Boyette,
Yes.
Kevin Herron,
Excuse me. Should the record not reflect we have an extension here?
I don't think Mr. Friday knows about that. That's my fault.
Commissioner Hodge,
Mr. Hodge, yeah, stepped
he's
out.
on the roll call from the beginning of the meeting.
Put that in the record.
Yes, let the record show that Commissioner Hodge has abstained from this vote.
Kevin Herron,
Yes.
Stacy Denton,
Yes.
Doug Bell,
Yes.
Gary Gibson,
Yes.
Dickie Johnson,
Yes.
XR Royster,
Yes.
Mac Arnold,
Yes.
Bobby Jarrett,
Yes.
Kevin Richards.
Yes.
Very good, the motion passes. We'll move on to the next public hearing item, text amendments to subdivision regulations, Article 1, Section 1.14. Ms. Marks?
Chairman Dixon, we actually have one more. If you look above there,
Oh,
text amendment to Article, 4 of the general provisions.
okay, sorry,
That's okay.
my mistake.
Well, thank you. So we've had, as we've been looking at changes and issues that our current zoning ordinance have, one of the issues that has come up are accessory buildings. And currently, under our zoning ordinance, accessory, buildings can only be in the side or the rear. Recognize that a side yard starts at the corner of the building. So your building, that defines your side yard. Anything in front of that is front yard. As you know, we're getting larger lots. We're seeing bigger houses, larger lots. And now we're seeing in other communities, things that are called executive, that are or more. So we were looking at this, and on those lots, they're big enough that you could put an accessory building in front of the building, but not really obstruct the building itself. So we looked and we thought in R1 and R4 for agricultural, and lots that are at least 25,000 square feet, that would allow more flexibility for property owners to be able to build some accessory buildings in front of their homes but it not be an issue of, it blocking the neighborhood or looking odd in the neighborhood. So, you know, I grew up in Hollander Acres, so I'm gonna use Hollander. You put an accessory building on a lot in Hollander Acres, or it just wouldn't, it would block the view. Answerable with the neighborhood. But in these bigger and bigger lots now, there's more designs that are going in. So, we put this to the, city commission, and so what our recommendation would be is that accessory buildings could be placed in an R1 and R4 or an agricultural zone in lots with 25,000 square feet as a conditional use. So it wouldn't just be automatic, it would be a conditional use, so Mac would get the.
I was curious too, that would take care of a problem which we have some in the past, that on corner lots, because they have two front
Yeah,
yards.
exactly.
And that has been issues that you all have had. We've had an issue, I know, in the last 3 years with someone wanting to put a, carport front yard, but it was really a side yard. It was a front yard. Well, under this, we would be able to bring it if the yard were large enough. And then it would be up to BOZA to determine that would work with that. So that is, something that we took to the city commission, and, they sent it to you all for the public hearing. We think it would give property owners more flexibility in these larger lots.
This is the RF4 zone.
Riverfront for,
River.
I didn't bring my book. Have what are,
Residential district of Riverfront.
This is not going to be bid, so it'd be.
RF2, because most R2 zones are so small. You have smaller areas.
Any questions from the commission? Comments? Do we have anyone else here who would like to speak in favor of this change or against it? Any other fashion? None? Without further comment, I'll entertain a motion in regard to text amendment to Article 4, General Provisions, Section 4.24. Pleasure of the commission.
Also, motion that we recommend to the city of Henderson.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Secretary, please call the roll.
Kevin Richards,
Yes.
Bobby Jarrett,
Yes.
Mac Arnold,
Yes.
XR Royster,
Yes.
Dickie Johnson,
Yes.
Jerry Gibson,
Yes.
Doug Bell,
Yes.
Stacy Denton,
Yes.
Kevin Herron,
Yes.
Frank Boyette.
Yes.
Very good, thank you. Now I think we can move on to item C, and Commissioner Hodge can rejoin us.
You want me to wait for him to get back, or you want me to go ahead?
It would not need to be part of the motion, but it both of these amendments were amendment to the zoning ordinance can either be originated by the planning commission or by government body, county in case. And it's good for the record to show originated.
Very good, thank you. Ready for item C?
Okay, so as Tommy Joe just mentioned, we are now talking about text amendments to our subdivision regulations. So a completely different document there. But as you all are aware, ag divisions for the last at least 2 years, have come to you all for approval. Those are lots that are typically 5 or more acres that are being divided to maintain their agricultural use. So not to build homes specifically and things like that, but to meet one of the agricultural uses that are discussed in KRS, I believe, 100, 111. So we were recently it was brought to our attention that there was a court case in Kentucky, Nash v. Campbell County. You can look it up if you want, but more or less, the thing that we're discussing today, it was found that planning commissions really should have no ruling, no say when it comes to an agricultural division because of the agricultural supremacy clause. So being that we are just making updates to our subdivision regulations so that we are in compliance with the way that should be done. For the most part, the discussion there is that as long as an agricultural division is 5 or more acres, meets one of the required uses discussed in KRS, does not create a new street, then that would be considered an agricultural use division exemption that we have discussed previously that would used to come to you all. These would no longer come to the planning commission. They would be able to be recorded as long as they meet that 3-pronged test that's discussed. In conjunction with Mr. Friday, as well as some surveyors in the city, we were able to come up with some language. So you will see on the first text amendment that we're discussing, we are just updating how exactly it would meet in agricultural use. So for the definition of a subdivision, we have included that language there for unless it is an ag use, it does not fall under the subdivision regulations at that point. The part that is most important
Excuse
sorry,
me.
go ahead.
You're referencing, Article 1.14 definition of subdivision?
Correct.
We inserted something and then deleted something.
Yes, so.
That's also referencing.
Now we're moving on to 2.3.
Section 7.
Yes.
I'm just,
She's discussing section.
these are the pages that are entirely in blue, which I assume that means that there are additions, complete additions.
Correct. The blue is a complete addition. So for 1.14, that's the definition of a subdivision that we had when you first open up for general provisions. So that just needed to be edited a bit because we are no longer, it needs to be better defined, I guess, because it says an agricultural use and not involving a new street. We want to make sure that we are, quote, actually including the KRS, and also connecting it to the changes that we are making on 2.3, excuse me. So the next page there is kind of where we get into the weeds, I guess, of how this is going to change. So this is how we would do our content and format for a minor sub, which agricultural exempt divisions would be considered that. And so we define, and Mr. Friday, please correct me if I'm wrong here, because we discussed this a lot, on exactly how we wanted an exemption to be put on the plats or certification, showing that these are agriculturally exempt lots. I can read all of this, or you all, if you have questions, we can do it that way. But more or less, it is going to, it has to be maintained as an agricultural use of those uses that are defined through KRS. Those are specific to KRS. They are not something that we come up with. And then it also, you can find those, we do list those in our subreg. Basically they're certifying that they are only using this for an ag use moving forward. They are not going to advertise it for sale of a residential lot to be able to build on. No new streets are gonna be built, and they will maintain that 5 acres or larger for both the division itself as well as the remainder lot.
Excuse me. They can build a residence, but as long as it's not for sale to the public.
Correct. They can, as long as they are actively involved in the agricultural use that is taking place on the property for which they have fallen into that ag use category, then they can build a residence on the property.
They're farming the property.
If they're actively involved, yes.
Yeah, that's defined by the KR statute that's in the text.
For example, I hate to,
It's complicated.
family wants to subdivide part of their ground so their son or daughter can build a home there. That son or daughter is not involved in farming or elsewhere.
Then, at that point, the property, it would need to be, we discussed this down here too, so, but the way Tommy Joe we will bring it back to the planning commission, and it will need to come into compliance with subdivision regulations. So that that parcel would no longer be an ag exempt parcel. It would be a typical everyday subdivision.
And I understand this proposes that these subdivisions not come before the planning commission. Do they go to the planning commission staff for approval?
An ag division cannot. Legally, and this is Tommy Joe's thing, that they are not supposed to come to us as long as they meet that 3-prong test that was, discussed in that Nash v. Campbell County case.
Who determines if they've met the 3-prong test? I'm just curious.
Well, let's vote to it. Allow me to say something. Part of that 3-prong test is also has to be restricted only agricultural use. Who approves it? If the landowner adds the restriction and certifies that it's only used for an agricultural use, not as defined in our zoning regulation. I would like to discuss that later, but I would suggest there's no reason to get confused about this. But if someone asserts they are exempt from subdivision, they are going to divide without approval using this exception that's set out in statute and is enumerated in the case. And they're allowed to take their plat and the clerk has the right and refer it back to the planning commission, see if it meets this. Not an application, there's no fee, no requirement on the clerk to do that, to refer it back to the planning commission. Otherwise, the clerk has to make a decision. Planning commission stands.
So, let me ask a question. I hear Jennifer saying that the staff,
Do you want to add it?
So, the only thing I would add to that is that the clerk can request assistance from the planning commission or the county attorney.
Or private attorney, but yes, or attorney, isn't.
But in reality, most likely, they're gonna come to the planning commission staff. Jennifer and myself.
Even then, it won't get approved.
well, I was just referring back to Jennifer saying that planning commission staff shouldn't even
Unless we
take
are
this up.
asked, yeah, unless we are asked by the outside entity that would be recording it, per se.
Okay,
and
all
they
right,
need
well,
help.
that
Yeah.
clears it up.
Or the applicant can come
yeah,
to the
they
planning
would too.
commission first and say, would you look at this and see if you think it could make it clerk?
There's no certification from the plan, you know how we have the little box that Brian signs there, that would not even be on there. We would just review it as a, courtesy to that person or the clerk or
That
an
either
attorney.
meets it or don't meet it, and,
Yes.
Well, yeah, we're giving our opinion.
yes.
One question is, section 7F, note 2, how does floodplains come into play on this?
not exempt. So you would have to comply with subdivision.
That's what, so that little note there would make it go back, revert to our normal process we've been using.
Whatever that is. Whatever it is. It's something that a property owner should be very reluctant to do. There are no high river bottoms, fine. If you're just trying to save time or save dollars, whatever it costs to file an application, are severely limiting the use of your property. There are cases where it's a good thing, but it's not up to us to decide whether it's good or bad. This is state law. We're only recommending to bring the subdivision.
Clarification, Stu. Now, if an individual comes to us and asks whether, if that property meets the conditions or good, you say no, be able to come back and appeal that?
Well,
Or how
in that case, we would not say no. We are not going to, saying no, in my opinion, implies an approval or denial. We're not gonna do that. We're only gonna say, in our opinion, we don't think this meets the recommendation. Have a nice day. At that point, they can go to the clerk's office and present the plat to the, or the agriculture division to the clerk, and then the clerk ultimately has the approval authority or the denial authority. So, yeah, and then if they ask us, we will give our opinion. Nice day.
So the clerk,
You're giving your opinion whether you think it's recordable. And by saying it is recordable, you're saying that it meets the test of the
clerk will ultimately decide whether it's recordable or not.
It's
Using
pointed
our
out,
recommendation or somebody else's recommendation
Right.
or their own personal piece or whatever.
state law prohibits us from approving or denying.
But the state law allows a clerk to approve it.
In a roundabout way, by saying the clerk can record ag exempted. Go back to your example a while ago. Parents own a farm, 20 acres or about, and child wants to build a house on a child is not involved in the farming, at the agricultural use. We always use farming, but it's a lot. Agricultural use on that tract, as defined by state, and they don't qualify for the ag exemption. They have to go through the normal subdivision, minor subdivision. They have to go through the minor subdivision.
Which would be the process that we've been using all this time.
But we use all the time. This is gonna be a very rare.
And in the overview of it, it's a making things less restrictive.
And that in this very limited capacity.
Exemption even exists now.
It's probably more just to make it up to legal. Not so much anything else. That's really, to me, the bottom line. We're just bringing this up to state law.
Mr. Richard, and as Jennifer quoted, there's a specific legal case now that originated this. Is that correct?
yes, and so that's why we, wanted to make sure we kind of got not ahead, because the case did come out a few years ago. But we want to make sure that we are in compliance and that, you know, going forward, when we review somebody's ag division like we have been doing, they don't come back on us in some form or fashion, you know, since we shouldn't have been reviewing them based on state statute.
I would think it'd be wise to be in compliance.
And just so that I can also get it in the record, the third, amendment that we were discussing there in 6.2, which is the definitions, it is just taking, so if you'll notice there that the least amount is 5 contiguous acres, that is what's in the state statute. So we went ahead and just matched that, unless there's a specific use down here below and you see an A where it would require it be 10 contiguous at that point. We did just, remove some of the things that no longer require, that don't meet, as well as bringing it into the planning commission for approval, removing that. And it looks like on the next page, it's just updating the subdivision definition to match what we did in that first section there in general provision.
Those that are interested, this 6.2 is the definitions of what is an agricultural use, including but not limited to, which means the definition could go well beyond that, right? Any other questions from the commission or staff? Anybody want to speak in favor or in opposition to this amendment? Hear none. Can we take up all three of these items here at one time in the motion?
Whoever makes a motion, would you add that we are doing the reason is framed in our subdivision compliance with state?
We can make all three amendments, Article 1, 2, and 6 all at one time.
Yes.
Any other questions or comments? Entertain a motion in regard to these text amendments to the subdivision regulations. More questions?
Approval or recommended to what body?
This was originated by Planning Commission staff.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to recommend the text amendments that were originated by the planning staff to bring our subdivision regulations into compliance with state law. All the notes that were just read in, and so these amendments would be to section Article 1, Section 1.14, definition of subdivision, Article 2, Section 2.3, content and format of major subdivision plat material, Note 7, agriculture division, and Article 6, definitions, Section 6, words and terms defined, Section 1, agriculture.
Thank you. Any further, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion, comments, questions? And Secretary, please call the roll.
Kevin Richards.
Yes.
Bobby Jarrett.
Yes.
Mac Arnold.
Yes.
XR Royster. Dickie Johnson.
Yes.
Gary Gibson.
Yes.
Doug Bell.
Yes.
Stacy Denton.
Yes.
Kevin Heron.
Yes.
Gray Hodge.
Yes.
Frank Boyette.
Yes.
Very good. Motion passes. Everything on the agenda for the public hearing. I'll entertain a motion to leave the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? You're out of public hearing. Item is the August financial report.
Might I make a brief comment?
By all means.
Before we leave this?
By all means, please.
The agricultural use subdivision regulations not the same agricultural zoning ordinance. Extremely confusing. Shame that legislature didn't pick different terms. The planning commission, final say, the city, county, or ordinance say what are in an agricultural zone, what are permitted, what are conditional uses. These are defined by statute. You can't do everything in an ag exempt subdivision, on an ag exempt subdivision, to a agricultural use zone if your property was zoned agricultural. Confusing, but it's an extremely important distinction.
I'll agree with the confusing part.
It is, but by using the same terms to mean different things, I have to say, as defined in the definitions, or as defined in our zoning.
Mhm. Very good, thank you. August finance report, Ms. Curtis?
The financial report for August, we're at 25% of budget.
Any questions? Questions? I'll entertain a motion in regard to the August finance report. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
August finance is approved. Now we have the bond report. Mark?
Yes, we have two bonds up for review this month. The first one is the Ollie Wash Car Wash. I'd like to note that I did put the original bond date as being 2022, that is 2021. The original amounts are $53,000 in streets, $2,200 in screening, and $10,100 in erosion control. The recommendation is to extend, all of those bonds for a year. Screening and erosion control will remain the same. However, the street bond will need to increase to $66,960 due to the increase in construction costs. And then the second project we have is Canoe Creek 2, Section 2. And this, we still have a remaining bond on that for the sidewalks and for $15,250. The recommendation is that we release that bond and send the sidewalks to the city for acceptance. If you guys have any questions, let me know.
Questions? Recommending the increase in this one bond. Entertain a motion in regard to the bond report.
Mr. Chairman, make a motion to accept the bond report as submitted. Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Report is approved. Thank you. Administrative business, Mr. Bishop.
Yes, sir. The planning commission staff has received two requests for a special call meeting. One would be for a rezoning, and the other would be for site plan approval. The planning commission staff has no issue with this request, but as you may remember, that is at the discretion of the chairman. So with that being said, I believe Chairman Dixon wanted to request the planning commission's opinion on that matter.
Got a couple projects that are feeling, we have been told, are feeling some time constraints or pressure. We could put them in the first commercial category.
They both would be commercial, yes.
Yeah. This commission has been very accommodating. People come forward in this kind of situation and ask for a special meeting. Everybody's busy and your time is precious. Everybody's above and beyond here, and it seems like it happens often.
Is it two separate
Yes.
entities? And
Two, yeah.
they're wanting it on the same date?
Correct. So
Okay.
one would be a rezoning, which requires 2-week, public notice.
Yeah.
And the other is a site plan, which is not as restrictive. We could turn that one around a lot faster,
Yeah.
but we don't wanna have two separate special call meetings.
Yeah,
We'd like to
that's
do-
what I was asking. We just do them both
Yeah.
on one night.
Yeah, assuming the planning commission is agreeable to. And the schedules work out.
So when is the date that's considered?
At this point, the earliest we could get notification, it would be tomorrow. So at best, I believe, Teresa, correct my math if I'm wrong, please, the earliest we could have the meeting would be, September 21st.
But you need 2 weeks,
Correct.
can't get it, the notification in tomorrow.
Oh, that's what I'm saying, at the very earliest, I mean, best case scenario would be.
Yeah.
I will say that, the rezoning has not reached back out to us today, and he was supposed to bring, he has submitted, a mostly put together application, but we have not received the payment for that rezoning or the adjacent property owners. So with regards to notification, technically, from our standpoint, we wouldn't even be ready to do that. So I don't know how we feel about having the site plan approval sooner and just maintaining the October date for the
I'd say we're
rezoning.
rapidly approaching just our standard
Our
next
standard
meeting.
deadline, right.
And if the planning commission's not agreeable to it, we were not even gonna, or broach this with the applicant, so we're putting our toe in the water with this.
Well, based on what Jennifer just said, it sounds like the applicant hasn't even put you in a position where we could meet earlier than next meeting.
Correct, but my guess is he's gonna do it pretty rapid.
Even if it's done this week, though, then pushes us to just one week for the other meeting, and it will not meet the deadlines of what he needs, what we know about it.
That's one of the cases. The other one, we
Yes.
think will be.
Site plan can be done.
Yep, site plan, it would be done, it's not a public notice, or not a public hearing requirement, so we could, Teresa, is it 2-day public notice on that?
We've already done LDC for that one.
Yeah. But 2 days for the planning commission meeting, no?
Well,
Correct, but I think, Mr. Friday's exactly right, but from a staff standpoint, I think it's cleaner to have a new meeting, new, agenda.
My concern is that can we gather enough people together to do the public's business? Or like we should, these applicants need to abide by our regular meeting schedule? What is the consensus of the commission? As I said, we have, been very accommodating in the past, in the recent past, I know of. I get a sense that everybody would like to help these folks if we can. We'll get as many people together as we need to do the business.
Yeah, we wanna be business friendly.
Frank used the term.
We've got the
Yeah,
availability
so
of
if-
doing the Zoom
Right.
link, so that, if there happened to be a conflict, maybe somebody can Zoom in to give us enough for a quorum.
Okay.
If you guys are agreeable, then I will reach out to the applicant, the potential applicant for the rezoning tomorrow morning. And if he can get everything to us tomorrow, I mean, we could still move it up a little bit. I think that would help with some of the dates that he has set, but, I wanna be as, accommodating as possible, but we can only do so much when a rezoning requires notification process and stuff like that.
I would propose that we try to have a special call meeting on either the 20th, the 21st, or the 22nd. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday option, sir?
But I will not be.
Okay.
No, I won't be either, I don't think.
Well, let's look at the 21st and 22nd. 21st or 22nd.
Those are open.
And, if everybody can get their ducks in a row by then, we'll have a special call meeting.
Correct. We will find out what the applicant has come up with, and then let you know as soon as possible.
Does that sound reasonable to folks? I would definitely want to be, we need to be notified. I'd like to be notified before this week is out whether this special call meeting is going to take place.
Not an issue, sir.
Good. Anything else under administrative business?
No, sir.
Any other business? Anybody have anything else to bring forward? Thank you all for your patience tonight as we kind of waded into the weeds a little bit. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you all very much.